Okay, just going to share a quick video with you guys and add some commentary to this. Came across this fascinating video from Joe Rogan where he argued about the existence of the alpha male with his guest. This guy's name is Adam Conover. I've never heard of him. Apparently he's a comedian. I have no clue who this guy was, at least until I watched this clip. It's the first time I've seen him, but I'm just going to go ahead and play this, and you guys can watch for yourself. And not surprisingly, this guy is going to argue the fact that alpha males are not real. And he's exactly what I would imagine somebody who would argue with the fact that alpha males don't exist would look like. And funny enough, he does have a little bee on his jacket here. I don't know if that's just poetic or what, but let's go ahead and play the clip, shall we?
But no, we did one on alpha males. We did an episode about dating. And we did one on how the idea of the alpha male doesn't exist in humans. Like if you talk to any anthropologist, any biologist, any sociologist.
Which, by the way, anthropologists, sociologists, biologists are overwhelmingly beta, right? That's why these guys enter these fields, because they are usually socially inept. These are not the type of guys you would see out there doing cold approach or being charismatic or pulling girls or doing the claw or being in 7 Months to Mastery. These are usually guys who just essentially lock themselves up in their labs and you know, bury their faces in their textbooks, and they're not really out there socializing. So of course these guys are going to deny the existence of the alpha male, beta male dynamic. But let's continue.
That's right. And be like, are humans organized in a social relationship where there's alphas and betas? They'll be like, no, what are you talking about? This is an unscientific idea, right? And we just did something laying that out in the context of like people who are, oh, my type is I like alphas, right? Well, there's no such thing actually. You know, humans are you're dominant in some situations, not in others, right? It's an overly simplistic way of looking at human relationships. And I thought that was a pretty simple, straightforward thing. I was like, this is just a bit of pseudoscience that you hear people tossing out. And people went ballistic on the internet because people have sort of like built a edifice of ideology in their minds about like, there's alphas, there's betas, I'm an alpha, this is what an alpha's like, this is what a beta's like.
I disagree with him. It's not that an edifice has been built up in people's minds because of, you know, this is what I was told and this is what I've heard. No, it's based on observational experience, right? We see this daily in our lives, in our own lives, in other people's lives, in movies, television. Well, not so much these days because a lot of the movies and TV shows are woke and they're manipulated to have a political and ideological slant to them. But, you know, you can easily watch any movie made before 2000 and you can see this alpha male, beta male dynamic playing out with almost every character you watch. Male or female, really, but mostly male.
You know,
but let's take away the words.
Yeah,
they're clearly men who are more aggressive and athletic and dominant and more confident, and then men who are introverted and shy and more nervous and anxious. And there's a scale
in some situations, you know,
social situations.
Yeah,
and that's what we're talking about, right?
In social, well, yeah, but your social situation could change based on what situation you're in. You know what I mean?
Like, but like an athletic, confident male is always going to be an athletic, confident male, and an introverted, anxious male who has problems with social anxiety is going to be the same. That's who that person is.
Well, I don't think so necessarily. But so when we're talking about alphas, right? In animals, what is that? It's a social hierarchy, right?
In animals. So let's take away that word. I mean, what people are using to describe when they're saying alphas and betas, they're saying like confident, strong, secure people and people that are anxious and not confident.
So if you're trying to say, hey, like it's good to be confident, it's not so great to be anxious. Like that's fine, right? But when people talk about alpha males and beta males, right, they're specifically bringing in the language of like evolution, of biology, of zoology, of evolutionary psychology, you know. And they'll start saying stuff like, well, there's alphas and there's betas, and women are hardwired to be attracted to the alpha, you know, because that's what it's like in nature. Like they'll be using that language, right? And so what we're pointing out is that's not scientific, right?
It's not scientific, but it is true that women are hardwired to be attracted to confident, athletic men.
I don't know. Well, I don't know if I agree with that.
What?
But
really?
Yeah.
You don't think that women look at like pro athletes and like big, strong, athletic men, and you don't think they're drawn to that for evolutionary reasons?
No, I don't actually.
What?
Okay, do you think that men are drawn to women with small waists and big hips and large breasts for evolutionary reasons?
I think that's an easy. I think what that is that's an easy intuition to come to if you're like looking at the way people behave, right? But one of the things.
Okay, before I let him go on here. The thing I can't stand about people on the left, and I'm just going to assume he's on the left, and I could bet $1 million he probably is. They all do this, right? They're like a lot of modern women these days. They're not arguing to get to the truth or debating to get to the truth. They're essentially arguing and debating to be right, right? So you're either arguing to get to the truth or you're arguing just to be right. Right, and this is something I see a lot of people on the left do. They just argue to be right. You could present all the facts in the world, all the observational, scientific facts to them, and they'll still try to manipulate that in a way where they are still right. So you can't have an honest conversation with somebody like this because they're always just going to argue to be right. They're not going to argue to get to the truth, which is what any debate or argument should be about. It should be about getting to the facts and the overall truth. But they won't do that because their arrogance won't allow them to do it. That's what I can't stand about the left. Is like they're just so arrogant that there's just this lack of humbleness where they just can't admit when they're wrong or when something is just generally true. That's another thing they don't like. They don't like things that are generally true unless it benefits them, right? But the second it doesn't benefit their argument, they immediately go to the outliers. They immediately point out the exceptions and not the rule, right? And it's like that's not how you argue or debate things, right? Because things are always going to be either generally true or generally not true, right? You really just argue on the stereotypes, right? There's a reason we have stereotypes because things are stereotypically true. We're not counting those like rare few exceptions. We're not counting those, those misfits or those outliers. We're talking about what is generally true. And again, they will use this to their benefit, right? I mean, they will totally use this to their benefit where they'll be like, oh, I knew a guy at school once. He wasn't like that. Oh, that means it's not true. No, it is true because these things are generally true, statistically true. Let's go on. But you just can't have an honest conversation with somebody like this because they're just arguing from their ego. They're not arguing to get to the truth. They're just arguing to protect their ego and to just be right.
About evolutionary psychology is it's the most common mistake to look at the way that people do behave.
See, look what he's doing.
The reason we behave that way is because evolution says that's the best way.
Mm-hmm. Look what he's doing. He's trying to sound smart, right? You could tell this guy is totally trapped in his ego, whereas Joe is just arguing to get to the truth, right? And this is why it's like he's trying to have an honest conversation, but this guy, he's not. He's trying to manipulate it so that he could be right.
Right. That's their argument. For instance, I'll give you an example. That's the argument arguments like that were used, for instance, to justify slavery, right? That like, because whites and blacks have this
now he's bringing in the racism
in American society. That's the way it was intended. That's how nature intended it to be, right?
Jesus.
But we can't
that's a giant leap.
We can't make that
about
leap.
like the shapes of bodies. Like men universally are attracted to a certain shape of body.
Yeah. Why was he going off on slavery? Joe is sitting here trying to talk about like the shape of a body, what men are naturally attracted to. This guy goes on this tangent, starts talking about slavery. You notice this is what they do, man. This is what like a lot of woke left people do. It's like they'll change the argument or they'll try to distract you with something completely just off the wall that has nothing to do with what you're talking about. And then Joe has to be the responsible one here and bring it back to what he was talking about.
There's men that are attracted to different ones. And
I don't think men are universally attracted to the same
People vary,
body.
but that hourglass shape has been throughout time something that men are attracted to.
I think that hourglass shape is something throughout our recent cultural memory that we tell each other that men are attracted to, right? That's what we're told from an early age.
No, nobody tells us this, jackass, right? This is just what we are drawn to from an early age. This is just, oh my gosh. Again, he's arguing to be right. He knows he's being dishonest here. He's even lying to himself. And a lot of these lefties, a lot of these woke dudes will even lie to themselves to just so that they don't have to admit they're ever wrong.
This is the sort of women that men are attracted to. And so a lot of men end up adopting that, right? But I don't think that deep down that's how men naturally are. You know?
Really?
Yeah. I read this.
That doesn't make any sense to me. That's so non-intuitive.
Well, I'm all about things that are non-intuitive.
Where do you think?
Oh my
where
God.
do you think it started? Where do you think this narrative of men being attracted to the woman with large breasts and a small waist and a big ass? Where do you think that started? Because this is like evolutionary biology has pretty much settled on the idea that the reason why is that the large hips would indicate that the woman would be easier to give birth. Having large breasts and a large ass would indicate that she has she's fertile, and then she has ample fat storage in the right places if she's going to be pregnant and carry children. There's all these like evolutionary biology reasons why people are attracted to certain things. Why a woman would be attracted to a tall, muscular, handsome man, good genetics, very strong and confident, can take care of her. All these things are based on evolutionary biology. So I don't understand why you think these are learned sort of cultural artifacts.
So my question is, this is an assumption that we, the public, make about how evolutionary biology works, right?
Well, it's more of a thing that we sort of agree on.
Well, we as the there's an idea among the public that this is true. I don't know if it's a scientific idea.
I've had conversations with
this guy is trying so hard to sound smart. It's insane.
The evolutionary biologists who explain the reason why men are attracted to certain shapes and why women are attracted to certain shapes. This is sort of, I mean, this is science in a way. The reason why they're attracted to tall men that are muscular and confident is because that is what's always saved you.
Yep.
Throughout history.
I mean,
it totally makes sense, doesn't it?
Yep.
Well, just because it makes the point.
See how he can't just give Joe that, right? Even though it's just so blatantly, obviously true, he can't just sit there, be a man, and go, "Hey, that's a great point, Joe. Yes, I agree. No, this is why you can't argue with these dudes like this, because they just can't admit when they're wrong, even when you are clearly right. They can't just be like, yeah, that's true. I mean, at least, when it comes to Joe, in many of his interviews, even when he's arguing with somebody he completely disagrees with, he at least he has a foresight and the maturity to be like, oh yeah, that is a good point. You got that. Yeah. Okay, carry on. Okay, let's move on. But this guy, no, actually, let me play some more mental gymnastics in my head so I don't have to admit that I'm wrong. Just like a modern woman. No accountability at all. You could never admit when you're wrong. I mean, is it any surprise guys like this act like chicks? They behave like chicks. They talk like chicks. They argue like chicks. They play mental gymnastics like chicks.
End of our show, right? Is that just because something makes intuitive sense doesn't mean that it's necessarily true, right?
You think that in this case that this is a varied argument?
Oh my God!
I don't think that's something that you can dismiss.
I don't dismiss it, but I don't.
I'm just like ready to pop this guy. I was like, this guy can't just admit when he's wrong about something. You don't have to admit you're wrong about everything, but at least admit the points that Joe is making. He's got this guy cornered. He knows he's cornered. There's no way out. Yet he can't just sit there and go, you know what? Yeah, you've got a point. You've got a point. He just does. Again, this is what happens when you have too much arrogance, too much ego, and you're full of your own BS. And this is why, too, a lot of people on the left don't like to debate. They can't because they're terrible. Because they know their egos will get in the way. They don't want to hear criticism. They don't want to hear anybody who's skeptical. They don't want to hear the other side. That's why they constantly shut you down, or they get a blowhorn like brr, brr, brr. While you're trying to talking, you see these people on YouTube doing like trying to debate them, and they're like get a blowhorn or a whistle and start blowing it in your ear, or trying to cover the camera so you can't film. I mean, this is their way of debating, and you know, the ones who do get on stage, who have the balls to do it, I give them that. They just sit there and they'll never admit they're ever wrong.
Don't assume the truth of it simply because that's what, you know, everybody agrees upon, right?
But if you ask girls, like, what are you into? And you say, are you into tall, muscular, confident men who are also nice to you? Jesus Christ, it's going to be off the charts. It's going to be like most of them.
I'm really not sure that's the case.
Oh my God! Look, he can't even admit that. He can't even admit the fact that women are attracted to confidence. If you walked out on the street and you interviewed 10 women, what is the number one trait you look, or 100 women, or 1,000 women, what's the number one trait you look for in a guy? You know what they'll say? If they don't say looks, they'll say confidence, right? Overwhelmingly, that's going to be at the top of their list, is confidence. So he's saying that, oh, I'm not so sure about that, Joe. That would mean I have to admit I'm wrong. No, instead he's going to argue this ridiculous point that, no, I saw some women want guys who are not confident. Who? I've never heard that.
I think you had like a survey of women, and if the men were equally kind and equally intelligent and friendly, you don't think that more women would be sexually attracted to these tall, handsome men with great bodies?
I mean, look, I'm not gonna say that. Like, first of all,
oh
you're
my
positing
God,
like a value judgment.
Look, he just can't even admit something that is just biologically factual. I mean, it's so sad how trapped he is in his ego, how obsessed he is with his need to be right. How does he have conversations with anybody? This is why these dudes usually stay in an echo chamber, and they usually just only associate with people who agree with them, so they never have to hear a dissenting opinion, right? Because they just don't have the character to admit when they're wrong. I mean, because it takes character to admit, like, hey, yeah, you got me on that one. But when you don't have character, when you're, you know, full of your own, you know, hot air, you'll never admit it. So you see what he's doing here. I mean, even if he watched this, like, this dude is so full of himself, even if he watched himself arguing right now, and watched the replay of this, which I'm sure he did, he's probably thinking he destroyed Joe. Even though you could read the comments, I'm not going to go in the comments because they speak volumes about this dude, right? But this guy, he'll ignore all those comments and the people who are like making fun of him in the comments and pulling apart his argument, and he'll still walk away thinking he won this argument and he destroyed Joe.
And that the bodies are great, right? So, like, are women attracted to attractive bodies? If that's the question, then I would say
dad bods are more attracted to women. Study finds some
that's what I'm talking
guy
about.
With a dad bod.
Look, here's something that I was really influenced by. I read.
What do you think of that? What I just said, though, that doesn't make sense to you. That women would be attracted to someone who's fit.
Look, I mean, it's a hypothetical, right? Like, certainly athleticism, right, is something that is attractive, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's something that many people find attractive, right? Not everybody finds that attractive. And I don't think that we can necessarily reason backwards to like a specific evolutionary relationship, right? Because the truth of what those evolutionary relationships are is like often a lot more complicated than, you know, our immediate intuition about it. And what we're specifically pushing back against in that segment is like the really sort of unscientific, you know,
use of alpha and beta.
Yeah, exactly. Where it's like, you know, you've got people, you know, just on internet forums, like sort of doing amateur pseudoscience, right? Saying like, this is how the relationships between men and women are like designed evolutionarily. Mm-hmm. And we were just pointing out on a very, very simple level, like the alpha and beta social hierarchy theory, right? That like humans are organized in a social hierarchy and alphas are above betas. Not true, right? Even someone who is the person who you posited, right? The person who is athletic and confident, right? The you know, the high school football quarterback, right? Versus the high school football nerd, right? Well, take those two people and then put them in a different situation, right? If those two people are like in gym class together, right? Of course, the high school quarterback is like on the top of that social interaction, right? Looking at the sort of, you know, classic wolf pack model, they're the one who's sort of running the show, right? And the other guy's like hanging out in the bleachers, talking to his friends, right? Or talking to nobody because he's a beta in that situation, right? If you then take that kid and then you send that kid to like nationals, right, or whatever, and that kid, take the quarterback character.
I'm pretty sure that this dude just loves to hear the sound of his own voice. I mean, it's so clear. Like, this guy just loves hearing himself talk. He's just like most woke dudes. They just say a whole lot of. They can talk for hours without saying anything, and he's proven my point. He's talking on and on without saying anything, whereas Joe is really not talking that much, but what he's saying is having some serious impact. And this dude is trying to like just bring everything down to like this micro level of scientific accuracy when it comes to alpha and beta, and don't use these simplistic forms. It's like, well, most people are not going to be like scholars of this stuff. They just get the basic understanding of what an alpha is and what a beta is, right? Enough to get by and understand the world makes sense when I look at it this way. But he doesn't want the world to make sense. He just wants to be proven right.
Suddenly, like, from the little podunk town, right? He's not from the big school. He's like way down the totem pole, right? That person is no longer going to be in that high social hierarchy, right? And if you take that nerd and you put that, take that kid, maybe he's the dungeon master of his, Dungeons and Dragons group, right?
Oh my God,
that kid is going to be the alpha in that situation, right? That's how humans work,
Oh my gosh, this guy is just, I mean, yeah. It's insane how much value he places on himself, especially when he's wrong here. You have to have some self-awareness to just realize when you're losing an argument badly, and you just have to admit, like, okay, yeah, you got a point, Joe. This dude is just now running in circles, and the thing he doesn't understand about the alpha-beta male dynamic is the fact that, like, Joe is attributing it mostly to confidence and social skills, right? And I would argue, as professional pickup instructor and somebody who's been out there and has coached lots of guys who are successful, who are well off financially, and even guys who are poor who still did well regardless. The number one factor that these guys had in common were their social skills, their charisma. And that would go for really any profession, man, whether you're like this nerdy biologist or you're, especially like a politician or something like that. A lot of it just boils down to your social savvy, right? And how you can present yourself, and, what would come across as alpha or beta, right? As much as this guy would love to, dissect it into 1,000 moving parts, you don't need to go that far.
Humans aren't organized in sort of like little pods that stay together for life, and there's one person who's dominant the whole time, right? And that's the simple point that we were making in that piece, right?
And people got upset.
Yeah, people got upset because there are so many people who, we talked about this later on the show, there's this idea called the backfire effect, right? Where when people are told something that they don't agree with, that when someone has told somebody a fact, when somebody is told a fact that contradicts like a really deeply held belief, it can often cause them to disbelieve it even when it's true, right? And in fact, fight back even harder.
Yeah.
Okay, now I know this dude is definitely on left, because, or definitely woke leftist, male feminist type. The reason I know this is what he's about to do now is he's about to gaslight. Without, maybe, I don't know if he's aware he's doing this, but he's about to gaslight, because everything he's describing right now is, oh, you're presented with a fact, and then you just reject it. He's doing exactly that now. Right? He's gaslighting. This is exactly what a lot of these woke feministas, SJWs, card-carrying feminists do, right? They accuse you of doing what they themselves are doing.
One of the reasons that happens is because of an idea called identity protective cognition. It's if
he's doing that. He's doing this.
The fact that is being debunked is literally part of your identity, like if it's something that you believe really, really deeply.
Tell me he has not done this entire interview. What he's doing right now. Do you see where the gaslighting comes in?
It's incredibly hard for you to disbelieve it, right? The classic example of this is like, Sean Hannity doesn't believe in climate change, right?
Really?
Well, you know what? I actually don't know that specifically what Sean Hannity thinks about climate change. So let's just say somebody who's made their whole career on climate change doesn't exist, right? All their friends are in the anti-climate change community, right? They met their wife at an anti-climate change fundraiser. You know what I mean? They make their money. They write a new anti-climate change book every year, right? Now, climate change is real, right? There's no evidence I could present that person with that is going to make them take the social risk of ending all their relationships, changing their whole life, right? Because if they were to say, okay, you know what, actually I'm convinced climate change is real, they would lose all their friends, their wife would leave them, they would lose their revenue stream, they can't possibly come to that conclusion.
Okay, what he did just there, he's completely, again, he's being dishonest and he's self-projecting, because this is exactly what, he's using climate change, that's a perfect example. People who believe in climate change, it has become a cult, right? It is literally a cult. And look at how they treat you if you don't believe in climate change. They will oust you, they will cancel you, they will shame you to no end. However, if you don't believe in climate change, right? If you're, say, anti-climate change, or you don't believe it's affecting humans on the level they think, you know, and then you meet somebody who is a climate change activist, you're not going to try to cancel that person. You're going to say, hey, those are your beliefs, that's fine. Right? It's actually people who are on the right, and I learned this, I've always been independent, I've learned this the more I've studied both sides. The people on the right are always the ones who are willing to have that conversation, who are willing to be skeptical and ask questions and have an open debate. It's people on the left, it's for this purpose, the climate change people who don't want to have those open conversations. It's like, nope, this is happening, screw you, we'll destroy your family and kill you, I hope you all die, of carbon monoxide. They're the ones saying things like that. So again, he's self-projecting and he's gaslighting exactly what he does. He's accusing the other side of doing, or you of doing, right? He's doing exactly that. This guy is so dishonest, it's making me sick to even finish this. But, I mean, I have to give Joe a lot of credit here for having just massive amounts of patience. I would have called him out on a lot of this, though, if I were Joe. I know Joe pressed him a little bit, but I would have really pressed this guy on just his deceptive debating tactics, especially what he's doing now and how he's self-projecting. People who don't accept climate change or don't believe in climate change, they're not the ones trying to shut down people who do believe in it. It's the reverse. People who believe in climate change literally despise and wish death upon people who don't agree with them. That's what I've always seen. I mean, not just climate change, but everything else when it comes to the woke left, the SJWs. This is why I will never support any of them or any of their candidates ever again. Not that I did, but he's being completely dishonest here. And the big reason why a lot of people don't jump into the climate change bandwagon either is because all of those like top scientists and Greta Thunberg and all those people, they won't debate the skeptics. They won't debate the skeptics. They don't. I mean, you could watch John Stossel. He's done a number of videos about climate change activists not wanting to even have an open discussion, laying down on the side of the road or on the freeway to stop everybody from going to work. I mean, those things don't bring people to your side, right? Especially not being willing to debate. And, Greta Thunberg, that's like the climate change queen, right? That chick has never debated anybody who disagreed with her. She does not have the guts to debate somebody who has facts, much less any of these other like hardcore climate change people. They don't debate the other side. This is why I will never be on board. Just like the I can't say it, the shot people. They wouldn't allow open debate. They were shutting down and canceling people who were skeptical. So I'm just not going to jump on board something like that. But I've always said, like, are we affecting climate change on some degree? Of course, right? With the amount of cars out there, of course. Is the world going to end in 12 years? Absolutely not. The world's not going to end in 12 years, even 1,000 years. We'll still be here. And this guy's just like beta male to the core, which he doesn't believe in anyway.
Right? And so they fight back so super hard, right? And so that's what ended up happening with that segment. There's a whole group of people who have built their whole lives on the idea there's alphas and betas. I'm an alpha. I'm not going to be a beta, right? And so, and maybe that meant something positive to them. Maybe they were in a bad place in their life. And
I think because this guy knows he's beta, he's trying to argue the fact that it doesn't exist.
Through this model of alpha versus beta, they started working out, or they started, improving themselves a little bit, right? And maybe they started acting a little bit more confidently, and now they're in a relationship, right? All those things can be true with the idea of alphas and betas and humans not being scientific, right? But so when I tell them that, they fight back really hard. They're like, no, this is real, And so that video, which again, I had no idea that would be controversial, got the most YouTube response videos, got the most, furious things from it. And the weirdest thing was, people started to say, this is political. Like, why is Adam Ruins Everything getting political? I'm like, I don't know what the hell they're talking about.
You do, dude. You do. You know you make everything political, you liar. You do.
I mean, that's
you
what
do, dude.
saying.
He's gaslighting. He knows exactly what he's doing. And yeah, these guys are the ones who are politicizing everything. Give me a break.
I guess, for some people it's become that, but because they've seen
Don't
it as
even
part
try
of,
it.
like, I don't know, whatever argument in their head they're having about feminism or something like that. But
See?
to me,
He's bringing in feminism. Yeah, you know what this is about,
it's
dude.
like, guys, in dating, right, in life, like, this is not a real concept. If you want to say, I'm going to be confident tomorrow, I'm not...
It's not a real concept in dating and life, says the beta male.
I'm not going to tell you that's not going to help you out, I'm a little bit reticent to make, like, a broad conclusion about evolutionary psychology, right? But I can tell you, again, go talk to any anthropologist, any biologist, any, sociologist. Is there such a thing as alpha males in humans?
In the strictest scientific sense of the word.
Yeah, exactly.
I think they're looking at it in terms of, like, winners and losers, pushovers and people who get the job done, confident people versus people who are not confident. But I think you're correct, and I think obviously humans operate on a giant spectrum. And if you start going around saying alpha and beta, and the idea that all alphas are the same or all betas are the same, it's just as ridiculous as the idea of saying all Democrats are the same or all Republicans. It's become...
But it's overwhelmingly, that is true. I mean, overwhelmingly, a lot of Democrats are the same. Overwhelmingly, a lot of the Republicans are the same. And overwhelmingly, a lot of independents are the same. Same with libertarians, right? I mean, there's a reason why we have these stereotypes. I don't know why it's so hard for, these type of dudes like Adam Conover to understand what when something is generally true, right? When it applies to the majority of people statistically, right? I mean, I always liken it to a slot machine. If you have one slot machine, that's paying out 90% of the time or 95% of the time statistically, but the other slot machine's only paying out 5% of the time, which one are you going to gamble on? Which one are you going to put money on? You're going to put money on the one that's paying out 95% of the time. Why would you be foolish enough to put money into the one that's only paying 5% of the time? That's all this argument boils down to. So I don't know why the homeboy can't understand that. But
exactly.
It's a pro-male ideology. Which I have the biggest problem with, like,
I think he has one more point
rights guys.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, listen, we have all the rights.
Yeah.
Like, fucking settle down.
Yeah, we got enough of them.
I had a whole bit about it. I was like, it's like divorce laws, and that's it.
Yeah.
Everything else is stacked in our favor.
Yeah.
Not really. Not when it comes to being charged with a crime. Women tend to get lighter sentences. Not when it comes to, he mentioned divorce, yes. Also the draft. Right now, if there were a draft, only men would be drafted and women wouldn't have to be drafted. So there's a lot of things he's missing here, but Joe still has a little bit of wokeness in him as well. He's not like, he's not fully on board with the other side. But regardless, drop your comments below, guys. That's the end of the clip. Let me know if you're frustrated with watching this dude try to argue the fact that there, the whole alpha male, beta male dynamics. Like, I get his point, by the way. I get the point where, from a scientific standpoint, you can argue the fact, like, wait, what? No, that can't be real. But just from an observational standpoint and a life experience point of view, you definitely see that. That's why guys relate to it so much, and they ping off of those two dynamics, alpha, beta, right? They ping off of it. They make life decisions based on that. Like, hey, am I going to do this? Is this more beta to do this, or is it more alpha to do that? you know, you kind of ping off those things. But regardless, drop your comments below. Let me know what you think of tonight's coaching video. Anything you'd like to add, anything you'd like to share, please drop them in the comments below. As always, don't forget to smash the like button, smash the subscribe button, smash that notification bell for me as well. Helps me out a ton with the YouTube algorithm, right? I appreciate it very much. This is Matt Cross from AlphaMaleSecrets. And if you want to support my work, best way to do that, if you're gaining value from my channel, from my free coaching videos here, if it's making you a better man, a more educated man, a more enlightened man, the best way to support what I do here is by becoming a premium subscriber of my premium AlphaMaleSecrets channel, which I'm hosting on a private platform away from YouTube, right? This is where you can find all of my premium AlphaMaleSecrets content that you won't find here on my channel, right? And right now, it's only $1 for the entire first month of premium AlphaMaleSecrets content from me. So take advantage of it. All you need to do is click the link below in my description box. It will take you over to my website where you can get signed up right now. Just takes 2 seconds, so do that now, and I'll see you in my next coaching video. I'm out.